Announcements, none. Papers have been laid. Questions?
Leader of the Opposition.
The question is addressed to the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Defence, Home Affairs, External Communications, Minister for Rodrigues, Out Islands, and Territorial Integrity. Whether in regard to the High-Level Committee on COVID-19, chaired by himself, he will state the number of times it has met since the 1st March 2021 to date, indicating if the decisions taken thereat are henceforth recorded, and if so, table a copy thereof.
Mr. Speaker, sir, before I reply to this private notice question, I would like to convey my sincere condolences to the families afflicted by the demise of their close relatives due to COVID-19. On 30th of January 2020, the Emergency Committee of the World Health Organization declared the outbreak of novel coronavirus, COVID-19, as a public health emergency of international concern, as there were cases confirmed outside China. Subsequently, the High-Level Committee on COVID-19 was instituted by Cabinet on 31st of January 2020 under my chair to monitor the situation regarding the outbreak of the new coronavirus and the precautionary measures to be taken to safeguard the population against any related health risks. The High-Level Committee is also mandated to take urgent policy decisions based on recommendations of relevant ministries, departments, whenever so required. Since that day, the High-Level Committee has been monitoring the evolution of the pandemic at local and international levels and has provided a platform for rapid sharing of key information amongst different ministries, departments, and other stakeholders to enable a coordinated and scaled-up national response against the pandemic. Following the detection of the positive cases of COVID-19 on 18th March 2020 in Mauritius, the High-Level Committee met on a daily basis until the situation was under control. Thereafter, the High-Level Committee was meeting on a weekly basis. With the resurgence of COVID-19 in the local community on 5th of March 2021, the High-Level Committee has resumed its daily meetings. Mr. Speaker, sir, the High-Level Committee is composed of, amongst others, of the Deputy Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade, the Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, the Attorney General, the Minister of Labour, Human Resources, Development and Training, the Minister of Health and Wellness, the representative of WHO in Mauritius, Dr. Gu, the Technical Advisor at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Commissioner of Police, and other senior officials and advisors of ministries and departments concerned. Other ministers and officers are co-opted as and when needed. Mr. Speaker, sir, since 1st of March 2021 to date, the High-Level Committee has met on 29 occasions. I wish to highlight that the High-Level Committee has been mandated by Cabinet to coordinate and monitor actions taken by ministries, departments, and other stakeholders in relation to our national response to COVID-19. Cabinet is apprised on a weekly basis of the prevailing situation and the actions taken by the concerned institutions, and policy decisions are taken by Cabinet as appropriate. I also wish to underline that in view of the resurgence of the virus and the need for expedient action, the High-Level Committee may be called upon to take urgent policy decisions for the protection of the population, and which are subsequently ratified by Cabinet. For instance, issues pertaining to closing of borders, imposing temporary restrictions of movement, preventive and sanitary measures, and the demarcation of red zones are some of the decisions taken by the high-level committee and subsequently approved by Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to emphasize that the high-level committee, being a coordinating body, each minister forming part of the committee is required to ensure that recommendations pertaining to his ministry and departments falling in his portfolio are documented and submitted to Cabinet for further consideration and approval. All decisions taken at the level of Cabinet are recorded and transmitted to relevant ministries for necessary actions at their end. Hence, the need for having formal minutes of proceedings of meetings of the high-level committee does not arise. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the face of the overwhelming threatening risk and danger to the health, safety, security, and life of our entire population, it is crucially important to expediently and promptly take all necessary measures to face, resist, counter, and overcome these risks and dangers. We are in a situation where we need the support and collaboration of one and all. It is a time when national solidarity and patriotism are vital and should prevail over all other considerations. The government and our health authorities are on high alert, and we are working tirelessly to keep the virus at bay and prevent its further spread amongst the population. The government has all along been guided in its decisions by its duty to protect the population. In this respect, we have taken into consideration, amongst others, scientific advice and guidelines of the WHO. Mr. Speaker, sir, I once again urge the entire population to act as responsible citizens and follow the advice and guidance issued by the health authorities in order to protect ourselves and others. I would also like to seize this opportunity to once again thank all persons, organizations, and partner countries for the valuable assistance they are extending to Mauritius in this new battle against the COVID-19. Before ending, I would like to once more express my gratitude to all our frontliners for their commitment, dedication, courage, and professionalism, including, first and foremost, our doctors, nurses, personnel of the contact tracing teams, police officers, employees in other essential services, and all those who are helping to keep the country going in these difficult times. I am confident that together we can and we will fight this invisible enemy and break the chain of transmission. I am convinced that the Mauritian patriotic spirit will prevail and we will once again defeat COVID-19. The government will, in the national interest, do whatever it takes to protect and safeguard the health of the population and save lives and livelihood, which remain our topmost priority. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I take it, therefore, there are still no minutes, no records of discussions and decisions taken by this very important committee. So let me ask straight away the Prime Minister concerning the re-entry of the virus into the local community. The Prime Minister is aware of the huge sacrifices made by the population. So can the Prime Minister tell the House and the nation how it is that despite all these sacrifices, the virus re-entered the community, and if so, when, and at what time, and when was he made aware of that?
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have taken number of measures to contain the virus when it first was discovered in Mauritius. And all the measures that we have taken, in fact, brought us to a situation where for quite some time we were COVID safe. Now, unfortunately, the virus has been again discovered. It has contaminated people, and so far we are not able to establish exactly how this new wave has happened. But of course, at the level particularly of health, we are trying to keep on our investigation in order to try to establish how this has happened. So we are not, I don't think we are the only country in the world where this is happening. We have seen in so many other countries where there has been not only first, second, third wave, fourth wave. So it is something which is, as I say, an invisible enemy, and we need to do whatever it takes, again, to be able to contain this virus and to spread its contamination.
Speaker, our borders are closed, unlike most other countries. Can I ask the Prime Minister when and whether he was made aware of one Mr. Patient R, who returned from treatment overseas and was treated at Suivez Hospital, and in so doing, at the end of January, in fact, around 19th of January, this patient R contaminated 3 officers of the health service, and therefore, since January, we have 3 local cases in Mauritius.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think one has to be at least raisonnable. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition has asked a general question on the high-level committee, which I'm chairing. Now he's talking about patient R. I don't have the record, especially not everything is recorded in my mind, about all the cases with regard to patients who have been admitted either to quarantine or to treatment centers. So if he has such information, he should have addressed a specific question to the minister concerned, and I'm sure the minister concerned would have provided him with all the information. Who is patient R? I don't know who is patient R. There have been so many people who have been admitted in quarantine. There have been so many people who have been admitted for treatment. So
I'd like to tell the Prime Minister that patient R therefore traveled to Mauritius, and he himself, in an address to the nation on the 9th of March, told us that the virus was here since February. His minister said since January. Dr. Go said before January. So there's still confusion in the minds of the population and apparently in the minds of government. So why did he say, on what basis did he say, beginning of February in a national televised address, if he doesn't know?
well, I think you have to be careful when you say I don't know anything. If you don't know anything, don't think that others don't know anything. Huh? No, you be careful. Mr. Speaker, sir, in my address, I have made several addresses to the nation, and I've spoken also on many occasions in press conferences. I cannot recall having mentioned a case. I cannot recall. I say I need to check. I have never recalled having made mention of a case of patient R. But this is your question. It's about patient R. And I should know, as if I should know that the patient R came to Mauritius. This is what you said in your question. So I'm replying to your question. Otherwise, rephrase, put questions which are appropriate.
Excited.
Now, patient R, to my mind, I cannot recall having mentioned this case. Of course, I will check my previous address, which I have made to the nation and in press conference about patient R, and if need be, I will make a statement with regard to patient R.
I said he mentioned patient R. I said that in a press conference to the nation, you said that the virus was here since early February and that your address was on 9th of March. So on what basis? Don't get excited, huh? On what basis did you reply? Did you give that information?
Don't get excited, you. I am not getting excited. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rely on information that are being provided to me by experts, by doctors, by those who have investigated and have tried to find out when approximately, because there is no certainty in this, when approximately the virus could have entered the country. Now, I did make an address, and I did say in my address that according to information that we have gathered so far, the virus could have been here in circulation since February. This I said, and I maintain what I said. Now, in the light of the evolution of the situation, the monitoring, the investigation that is still being carried out, especially by health and others, I hope that we will be able to find out who is the patient zero, the first person who has transmitted this virus and has brought it in the country.
Speaker, my last question on this subject is the fact that these 3 local cases arose in late January, and this was hidden from the population, which carried on having its normal business, and a number of public meetings were held without any precaution. But that is that, Mr. Speaker. I want to move on, Mr. Speaker, to the question of housing. To the question of hygiene. The Prime Minister must surely be aware of the dramatic infection rate amongst health workers. I think more than 40 health workers have been infected with COVID over the last few weeks. And also, the same thing has happened now to patients going to dialysis and going to hospital. Will he urgently ask his minister to review the protocol and the discipline in our hospitals so that this stops right now and doesn't occur in the future, because one person has regrettably died today?
Again, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is asking me to tell the Minister of Health. You should have directed the question to the Minister of Health, and then he would have obviously had the relevant information. Now, I will certainly take objection to the statement made by the Leader of the Opposition that we have been hiding cases since January. We have never hidden any information. Since the very beginning last year of COVID-19 in Mauritius, we have always acted in a transparent manner. We have always given information to the public. In fact, this is a repeat today. Last year, the opposition was saying the same thing. They were saying that we are hiding. There are thousands of cases. Unfortunately, Honorable Boulel is not here. He was in his, I think in questions and P&Q, they were saying that there was thousands of cases already, contaminated people. So many people are dying, they are going to die. And yet, this was false. Now again today, Honourable Leader of the Opposition is saying that we are hiding information. Every day, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a press conference. Our communication team are providing all information to the public. And in fact, so far, I must say, we have communicated number of tests that have been carried out, number of people who have been contaminated, number of people who have been admitted to treatment centers and in quarantine also. And this, not okay, you need to know because you don't know. Why okay? When I answer, you say okay?
No,
now you understand? Yes, I don't.
No cross-talking.
Be assured, I don't take Xanax to keep cool. I am already cool. So, So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I hope the Honourable Leader of the Opposition doesn't make those kind of frivolous, I would say frivolous criticisms. You can criticize the government on other things, but don't say that we are hiding information. And if you say so, prove it. Show to us that there have been cases and that we have not declared to the, we have not communicated to the public.
Would ask the Prime Minister very seriously, himself or his Minister of Health, to come with a statement later concerning case of charge nurse Boudou, Dr. Otaram, and Mr. Babulal, all three working at New Sirak Hospital. Tell us what happened to them, and then we will find out what happened. I may be wrong, but I may also be right, and you may be wrong. Mr. Speaker, I'll go on now to the next question, which concerns vaccines. Everybody going to a vaccine center this morning will have found out that there are no more vaccinations in Mauritius because the vaccines have ended almost yesterday. Last few days, we've done only about 4,000 vaccines instead of the 12,000 that was wanted. Now, when definitely are we going to get the next vaccine? Is it on the 15th of April for Sinopharm? Can you confirm? Or others or after, please?
Mr. Speaker, sir, let me say, first of all, I don't know whether the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is living in a world where he is aware, where you are living in Mauritius and you are confined to only Mauritius. You don't know what is happening elsewhere. You should watch TV, watch the news. Actuellement, Monsieur le Président, non seulement les laboratoires ne peuvent pas fournir et satisfaire les commandes, non seulement ça, mais il y a une guerre des vaccins. Il y a des pays qui sont en train de s'approprier autant de vaccins qu'ils peuvent. J'espère que le leader de l'opposition va s'informer qu'est-ce qui se passe entre l'Union européenne et l'Angleterre. Il y a même des blocages. Il y a un pays dans l'Union européenne qui a même bloqué une commande de vaccins qui a été commandée par l'Australie. Mais a bloqué cette commande. Il y a des mesures qui sont prises, enfin, qui allaient être prises, je ne sais pas si ça a été déjà prise, pour empêcher des laboratoires à fournir d'autres pays. Mais listen, let me inform you. We're talking about vaccine. Hey.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, bear with the Prime Minister. Allow him to answer.
He has to cool down. And you are turning round because you are not aware. I have to make you. Je dois faire votre éducation. Je dois vous informer. Qu'est-ce qui se passe? He's not aware what is happening elsewhere. And I must say, so far, thanks to India, we have been able to get AstraZeneca and Covaxin. And I need not go into details of so many vaccines that we have. And this opposition, vous savez qu'est-ce qu'ils ont dit, Monsieur le Président? Cette opposition, en particulier un membre, il a été dire qu'on est en train de servir Maurice comme cobaye pour un vaccin qui est fabriqué en Inde. Hein? Et ils viennent parler de vaccin.
Order. Be careful.
Et ils ont le culot de venir parler, on n'a pas assez de vaccins. Maintenant, Monsieur le Président, this same opposition, when we started vaccination campaign, what they were saying? Be careful. Don't sign consent form. Don't do vaccine. It is not WHO approved. You don't know what are going to be the consequences. Ça va rester. Ça va rester, ça va être avec eux pendant longtemps, Monsieur le Président. But then, you know, Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't. We have a duty, we have a responsibility, and we are.
Order!
He wants to go home. J'entends le leader de l'opposition dire qu'il veut aller à la maison. I don't know. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, right now, the vaccination campaign is going on. We are going to receive, and again, I must thank the government of the Republic of China, the People's Republic of China, for donating 100,000 of Sinopharm vaccine to us. Bien sûr, Monsieur le Président, je dois dire, honnêtement, mais oui, je dois dire,
I will give you some extra time.
Je dois dire,
But allow the Honorable Prime
je dois dire, à part les vaccins qu'on a eus, AstraZeneca de l'Inde, Covaxin de l'Inde, là, on va recevoir les vaccins de Sinopharm de la Chine. Nous avons eu une petite quantité de l'initiative de COVAX, c'est 24 000 quelque chose, donc qu'on a reçu. Évidemment, à ce stade, on n'a pas de garantie ferme qu'on aura d'autres vaccins. On est en train de faire des démarches. Et j'espère que ces démarches vont aboutir et qu'on aura donc d'autres vaccins en temps et lieu pour pouvoir continuer à poursuivre notre campagne de vaccination. The leader of the opposition has mentioned 3 cases of health workers, apparently. Again, il pose des questions spécifiques qui concernent la santé. La santé a les informations, la santé peut vous répondre. Posez la question au ministre concerné et il va vous donner les informations.
Speaker, I thought I was dealing with a responsible Prime Minister, but I found that I am not. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask the Prime Minister, had we pre-ordered the vaccine as we told him months ago, we would not be in this situation. It is because of incompetence, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll move on now to a very serious subject. That is burial. Burial. Now, I've looked at the World Health Organization, the protocol, the guidance on burial, where it says that even if you die of COVID, there is no reason to prevent your relatives from paying their last respects to you. Looking at the body is very, very important. It's not political, huh? It's very important. I myself would be very sad if someone from my family died, I could not look at the body. And so I'm going to ask the Prime Minister, why is it that we don't follow the WHO protocol here and that we do not show the body, the face, to the persons, the immediate family? And if we will not have this change and have the protocol change so that we can follow WHO protocol, World Health Organization protocol, at least in this case.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Quiet. Order.
Mr. Speaker, sir.
Order.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we have devised this protocol regarding.
Honorable Abbas Mahmoud, be careful.
We have devised this protocol since last year, when the first case of COVID appeared, and where the first, unfortunately, first death also with regard to COVID. The protocol, of course, is always under review, and but it is what it is, because we have taken into consideration all necessary precautions so that we don't have cases of further contamination, even in case of burial. Now, a leader of the opposition is criticizing us because he said we should have ordered vaccines months ago. I listen, pre-ordered, whatever you call it, pre-order, order. We have, since the very first day, we have got in touch with many of the well-known laboratories. We have ordered, we have tried to get vaccines on the very first day, Mr. Speaker, sir. And unfortunately, they were not in a position to supply. Now, the contradiction of the opposition. At one time, now they are saying we should have ordered long time ago. And then in the PNQ of the leader of the opposition, what was he saying? We should only use vaccines that are recognized and certified by WHO. So this is the very contradiction. They don't know which argument they will need to put forward. But I can assure the country that we are doing whatever it takes. We have been in touch in terms of our mission also in different countries and with regard to the requests made to laboratories manufacturing those vaccines, and we hope, let's hope that we will be able to get vaccines in the future.
Because the country is in such a mess because we have the Prime Minister so confused. Let me tell Mr. Speaker, the fines have been increased to 500,000 rupees, one of the highest in the world, because there has been indiscipline, but the fines are excessive. I'd like to ask the Prime Minister whether he has read l'Express newspaper, a photo of a minister talking to the Minister of Health without any precaution, and whether he has taken disciplinary and legal action against that minister. I will table this, Mr. Speaker. It's a copy of a newspaper.
Mr. Speaker, sir, he wants to set good example. Look at the way he's wearing his mask. Look at the way. Look at the way. But you, below the nose. Below the nose.
I think both of you.
Cover your nose, please. Cover. This is. Now you pull it down again. No, Mr. This is not serious. Maybe leader of the opposition wants to joke. The issue of sanitary measures which have been requested. In fact, we have discussed at length, and the same precautions have to be taken by each and every one. This is not new. We have been advocating that since last year. In fact, we are saying that, unfortunately, I must admit that when we came to a situation where we were COVID safe, and for quite a long time, we didn't have any single case of local contamination. People started to take it easy. I must say, each and every one. We thought that, now we are not going to have the virus. But unfortunately, it happened again. And therefore, our advice to each and every one, not only ministers, but each and every one, is that we must take the basic sanitary precautions with regard to wearing of masks, sanitizing, social distancing, and so on.
Mr. Speaker, I have two last questions. I don't know whether there's time for my colleagues to intervene.
No, it's only
Okay.
5 minutes.
I'd like to ask the Prime Minister firstly, given the huge sacrifices, just the two questions, Mr. Speaker. Huge sacrifices made by the nation. Will he promise to this House today and to the nation that there will be no more passe-droit? That we will not get no more passe-droit? No more delegations from overseas coming here, there, from this and that country at a time when we need to be COVID-free. No more private jets coming and landing and crews going and looking for bedrooms in the night. And no more film crews coming without observing the strict quarantine. This, I think, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the government owes this to the hugely sacrificing nation and the nation.
Put your question now.
The question was at the beginning. Will he promise? That was the question, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is no passe-droit. I don't know what he means by passe-droit, but there is no passe-droit. We have acted each time en tenant compte de la situation et l'évolution de la situation. Par exemple, the decision, for example, to close further our borders is because we started to have local cases. Now, he's saying there should be no delegations coming. I know what he's aiming at. Well, I know the recent delegation coming. I can't mal élevé.
Leader of the opposition.
You should withdraw that. I am not a mal élevé.
Leader of the opposition. Don't take lessons from others on that question. No. Withdraw that word.
Because I'm a Creole, I cannot ask a question.
Leader of the opposition, please.
I withdraw it, Mr. Speaker. But the Prime Minister also should not make these insinuations. I withdraw it. It's withdrawn.
This question, the leader of the opposition, he says, not to allow delegations coming and visiting us. I am replying to this. The last official ministerial delegation who came to Mauritius was led by His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of India. And he came, and we know what has been toutes sortes de rumeurs, d'allégations, de faussetés qui ont circulé. They have been saying, some of them, I'm not saying you. I am not saying you. I am saying there are some people who have alleged that this is how Mauritius has been contaminated. It is not the case. It is certainly not the case. And then these are official delegations. It's not the first time that the delegation led by a minister is coming to visit us. There has been the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Japan, who has been. The President of Seychelles has been to Mauritius. And then, Mr. Speaker, sir, around the world, even though there is this pandemic, there are still heads of state, ministers. When there is a need to travel, of course they do travel. And of course, I was coming to that, we have devised very strict protocol to ensure that there is minimum risk. And those protocols are applied, and we have seen to it that, and I can confirm that there has been no issue with regard to those delegations who have visited us.
Time over. The table has been advised that PQB 131 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of the Economy. PQB 132 will be replied by Honourable Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Education, Tertiary Education, Science and Technology. PQB 134, PQB 142 and PQB 143 will be replied by Dr. the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness. PQB 135 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of Labour, Human Resource Development and Training, Minister of Commerce and Consumer Protection. Honourable Lakshman Roy.
B129.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part A of the question, pursuant to my reply to Parliamentary Question B761 on 10th of November 2020, the National Youth Environment Council was set up under the aegis of my office on 23rd October 2020, following which necessary arrangements were made for its constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, as already informed, a call for applications from registered non-governmental organizations was published in the press during the first week of November last. By the closing date for submission of nominations on 20th of November 2020, 40 applications were received. Based on the eligibility criteria set, gender balance, and for a better representation of NGOs involved in the conservation and preservation of marine sciences, biodiversity, climate change, sustainable agriculture, and education heritage, 5 members thereof were chosen, and an offer of appointment was made to the candidates on 26th of February 2021. Following the acceptance of the offer by the chairperson and other members during the first week of March 2021, the National Youth Environment Council has been constituted as follows: Dr. Zahir Alam, OSK, the chairperson; Mr. Valérie de Falbert, vice chairperson; Ms. Sharon Yong Tit Kao, member representing the Prime Minister's Office. Ms. Bibi Nabila Fokia-Baks, Member representing the Ministry of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change. Mr. Darwin Sanasi, Member representing the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Sports and Recreation. Mr. Arvin Suku, Member with Legal Background. Ms. Nuda Bandhu, Member with Social Background. Mr. Fabiani Apavu, Member representing the UN Resident Coordinator's Office. Ms. Farin Bano Chatuduman, Member representing the Trade Union. Mr. Keshwa Lobin, Member representing the NGO Sustainable Agriculture Organization. Ms. Ansuya Pratima Ramsunder, Member representing the NGO Dimwa. Dr. Ms. Devina Lubin, Member representing the NGO Junior Chamber International, CUPIP. Ms. Lavna Eme Sneha Vitse, Member representing the NGO Action Against Global Warming Mauritius Initiative. And Mr. Narottumdas Yudish Roy, Member representing the NGO Junior Chamber International Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, I received the chairperson of the NYEC, Dr. Z. Alam, on 1st of March 2021 and briefed him on environment-related policies, vision, and strategies of the government. I also advised him to meet some of the directly concerned ministers to better understand the existing environmental policies for a more constructive contribution of the NYEC. My office has already requested these concerned ministers to receive Dr. Alam and to extend any facility he may require in fulfilling the mandate of the Council. Due to the resurgence of the COVID-19 and in view of the confinement imposed as from 10th of March 2021, I understand that Dr. Alam has been able to meet only the Minister of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change. Dr. Alam is planning to schedule meetings with other ministers at the earliest possible opportunity and at their convenience. Mr. Speaker, sir, my office is providing the required facilities and logistics for the Council to operate efficiently and effectively. In regard to Part C of the question, I am informed that the National Youth Environment Council met for the first time on Tuesday, the 30th of March 2021 through Microsoft Teams, an online platform for meetings, given the prevailing confinement. I am further informed that during its first meeting, the Council discussed its strategic vision and agreed on the modalities for its proper functioning, including the setting up of subcommittees for focused and thematic discussions so as to come up with appropriate recommendations and proposals.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. Can we request that the strategic vision of the Council is made public so that external stakeholders like students or other professionals can identify and collaborate in different avenues to better shape future recommendations aligned with the objectives of achieving a sustainable and inclusive Mauritius?
Well, I can only convey this request to the chair of the Council. I cannot pronounce myself on whether they will make it public. If you ask my personal opinion, of course, I don't see any problem for the Council whenever they have decided on their strategic vision to make it public, but this is a matter for them. I don't decide. It is for the Council to then decide. But I will convey and I will pass on this request to them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to know from the Prime Minister if there has been any change in the mandate of the National Youth Environmental Council.
Well, no, there has in fact, I had replied to a PQ before with regard to the mandate of that council. I think PQB 761 on the 10th of November 2020. But let me highlight at least one thing which I consider to be, they are all important, but very important, is that this council will be making recommendations on national action plans. And of course, obviously, on other environment policy decisions that will be taken by government. This is the very purpose of setting this council, for the youth to be able pour s'exprimer et pour, bien sûr, donner leurs opinions et faire des recommandations. And also, what is important is for them to be able to submit policy papers on environment protection and related issues.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Would the Honorable Prime Minister consider maybe creating a digital platform, it's more a recommendation as well, like to enable interactions both at national and international level?
Well, again, it will be, if it is a question that is addressed, I'm sure the ministry concerned is already looking into that, and I'm sure will take on board. But with regard to this council, it will be up to them. As I say, I've answered before that they will be able to seek the views of others, both locally and internationally. And I don't see, personally, I don't see any problem. But again, I will, it shouldn't be seen that I will be taking any decision with regard to the council. So the council, I will pass on the message to them.
Next question. B130.
Mr. Speaker, sir, as the House is aware, Section 110(2) of the Constitution provides that the public accounts of Mauritius shall be audited and reported upon by the Director of Audit, and Section 110(3) of the Constitution requires the Director of Audit to submit his reports to the Minister responsible for the subject of finance, who in turn has the duty to lay the reports before the National Assembly. The audited accounts, together with the reports of the Director of Audit, are thereafter examined by the Public Accounts Committee pursuant to Standing Order 69-2A of the Standing Order and Rules of the National Assembly. It is apposite to note that in the discharge of its duty, the Public Accounts Committee has the power to send for persons and records, to take evidence and to report from time to time. Moreover, the committee is assisted by the Director of Audit and or representatives of his office, representative of the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, the Accountant General or his representative, and by accounting officers of ministries, departments, and their representatives who are called upon to give evidence before the committee. It is also noteworthy that the Public Accounts Committee is composed of members from both sides of the House, and it is by convention chaired by a member from the opposition. The Public Accounts Committee remains the main form of parliamentary control over public expenditure, and it has so far served its purpose as the watchdog of public finances. Besides, in the last report of the Public Accounts Committee, the chairperson, while making a certain number of recommendations to enhance the effectiveness of the Public Accounts Committee, acknowledged that, I quote, "Our Public Accounts Committee is presently functional and is very useful as a means of scrutinizing the utilization of public funds, unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, in any case, honorable members have adequate opportunities to seek and obtain information and clarifications on the reports of the Director of Audit through parliamentary questions. The House will recall that only last week I replied to a private notice question on an issue reported upon by the Director of Audit in his last report. For all these reasons, it is not proposed to amend the standing orders and rules of the National Assembly to allow debates on the reports of the Director of Audit. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part B of the question, the need for amendment to the law also does not arise in view of Section 22 of the Finance and Audit Act, which already empowers the Minister to issue financial instructions for the better implementation of the provisions of the Act. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must say that government has taken a number of measures since 2015, following the observations made by the Director of Audit in his successive reports. These measures include the following. In 2015, the Finance and Audit Act was amended to require every ministry and government department to prepare an annual report on performance for submission to the Minister of Finance. Consequently, a guideline was issued in November 2016 by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development to assist ministries, departments in the preparation of their annual reports on performance. To further improve expenditure management, accountability and transparency, measures were provided in the 2018-2019 budget speech for the Finance and Audit Act to be amended to make it mandatory for ministries and departments to include an implementation plan in their annual report for preventing recurrence of shortcomings reported by the Director of Audit. Accordingly, the Finance and Audit Act was further amended in 2018. The annual report now includes a statement showing an implementation plan for remedial action and for preventing the recurrence of the shortcomings, including wastage of public funds referred to in the report of the Director of Audit. In this respect, the guidelines on the preparation of the annual report on performance were amended and circulated to ministries, departments. And as at date, all annual reports on performance received from ministries, departments include the implementation plan for remedial actions on the issues raised by the Director of Audit. Mr. Speaker, sir, in addition, the internal control unit has been strengthened and staff from that unit have been posted in all ministries' departments. They carry out internal audit functions, including risk assessment. One of the functions of the internal control is precisely to report on effective remedial actions to be taken following queries of the Director of Audit. Furthermore, audit committees, which are an added layer of control, ensure that the coverage of audit by internal control is adequate. They also ensure implementation of the recommendations of the Director of Audit report.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, il ne servira à rien de se cacher derrière le PAC. Le Premier ministre le sait très bien, Monsieur le Président, que le rapport du PAC n'est pas débattu ici au Parlement et les délibérations du PAC ne sont pas retransmises pour que la population puisse s'informer. Monsieur le Président, le dernier rapport de l'audit déposé montre des dénonciations de millions et de millions de roupies de gaspillage. Chaque année, Monsieur le Président, c'est la même chose. Est-ce que le Premier ministre ne trouve-t-il pas nécessaire, en 2021, alors que nous demandons à la population de se serrer les ceintures, le pays est presque à genoux, qu'on débatte de ce rapport ici pour que les parlementaires des deux côtés de la Chambre puissent dire ce qu'ils ont à dire sur ce rapport et au moins pour l'année prochaine, nous arrêtons ce gaspillage.
Monsieur le Président, je suis au moins d'accord avec l'honorable membre sur une chose. C'est que chaque année, le directeur de l'audit fait des critiques à l'égard de certains ministères. Il a bien dit, j'ai été voir dans le passé, et quand j'ai dit j'ai été voir depuis les années 2000, jusqu'à ce jour aussi, même le dernier rapport. Et ce n'est qu'aujourd'hui que et je dois dire que we are not condoning the fact that there are justified criticisms with regard to management of public funds in certain cases. Il y a le comité, d'ailleurs, lorsque moi-même j'étais ministre des Finances, avec l'actuel ministre des Finances, et j'ai dit les mesures qui ont été prises, d'ailleurs, pour veiller à ce que les fonds publics soient bien utilisés. Maintenant, l'honorable membre, peut-être, je ne pense pas qu'il est aussi nouveau venu. Il a été dans des gouvernements précédents. Depuis 2005 jusqu'à 2014, on a vu des situations où des critiques à l'égard du gouvernement, le rapport de l'audit aussi concerné pas mal, je ne vais pas entrer dans les détails, il y a même un ancien ministre des Finances qui avait vraiment condamné certains ministres en particulier à l'époque. À l'époque, ne voyait-il pas la nécessité de proposer à son gouvernement de venir de l'avant pour amender la loi, pour qu'on puisse débattre de rapport de l'audit au niveau du Parlement? Le problème, Monsieur le Président, c'est quoi? C'est quand ils sont au gouvernement, ils ne voient pas la nécessité de venir avec un tel changement, et quand ils sont dans l'opposition, à ce moment-là, ils trouvent à dire qu'il faut débattre. Mais je dois redire que je ne vais pas répéter tout ce qui a été dit, ce qu'on a fait au niveau pour effective and efficient management of public funds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, may I ask the Honourable Prime Minister, I've listened very carefully to your answer in this House. Is it not high time now to introduce a fiscal responsibilities bill to be debated before this House? Because year in, year out, we'll have the same criticism from the Director of Audit, and we've got the legal framework. But is it not high time to move on and have, in this House, a real piece of legislation like the fiscal responsibilities bill to be debated?
We will look into that, but again, let me say, fiscal responsibility, his leader has been Minister of Finance for some years, and there was, again, no necessity at that time to bring forward such a bill. But anyway, I am open, we'll look into that proposal.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'ai écouté avec beaucoup d'attention la réponse du Premier ministre et nous sommes tous d'accord au sein de cette Assemblée qu'il y a un problème. Mais qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire, Monsieur le Premier ministre, parce qu'à chaque fois, on ne peut pas que blâmer l'opposition au gouvernement. Can the Honourable Prime Minister, can I know from the Honourable Prime Minister whether actions will be taken against supervising officers of ministries and departments for dereliction of duty? I will give you an example.
No,
please.
Your question is okay.
Well, but as I say, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is our duty to see to it that public funds are being used in the manner for which Parliament has voted for the budget with regard to each ministry and for each project to be carried out in the most proficient manner. And I speak not only as a Prime Minister, but obviously as former Minister of Finance. We have seen on numerous occasions that there are justifiable criticisms that have been made by the Director of Audit with regard to implementation of some projects. And I say that candidly because it is something which has been through so many governments in the past and even now again. Of course, there are other criticisms that are not justified, I must say, because we look at all those criticisms. We look at what all the information that has been provided. But it is our duty to see to it that those funds are being spent in the proper way. And that is why I said we are monitoring, we keep on coming with new measures, and obviously, in the light of the report, whatever other additional measures have to be taken, we will do so. But we will have, as I say, we need, first of all, the explanation of the ministry's concerns with regard to those cases which have been mentioned.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La dernière question. Monsieur le Président, quand on écoute le Premier ministre parler du passé, je peux comprendre que dans le passé, le Standing Order ne prévoyait pas que nous débattons du rapport. Mais cette fois-ci, Monsieur le Président, il y a deux choses qui est apparues dans le rapport de l'audit. Première chose, le directeur dit qu'il n'a pas eu accès à certains papiers. Deuxième chose, notre pays est à genoux avec le Covid-19. Le Premier ministre ne trouve-t-il pas que c'est le moment idéal pour donner le bon exemple à la population en termes de gaspillage, pour sortir de cette opacité et la non-transparence que, ici les parlementaires, nous arrivons à discuter, à critiquer et aussi à émettre certaines suggestions pour améliorer le rapport de l'audit de l'année prochaine, on espère.
Mais qu'est-ce que l'honorable membre est en train de faire? Il pose des questions. La semaine dernière, l'honorable leader de l'opposition est venu avec un PNQ concernant un aspect de l'audit. Et j'ai déjà répondu. J'espère que l'honorable membre ne veut pas revenir sur cette même question concernant le fait que le directeur de l'audit, dans son rapport, il vient dire qu'il n'a pas eu accès parce qu'il y avait un non-disclosure agreement. I don't want to repeat again what I have already replied during the PNQ that was addressed to me.
Next question.
B132, please.
133.
Why not 132? It's addressed to the Prime Minister.
Why is it that rebellious characteristic with you? I have already...
Oh, he does not want to reply. Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
Why you bring
If he does not want to reply, that's fine, Mr. Speaker.
I have already given the signal.
I didn't notice. I'm sorry. But the question is, with regard to the letter addressed to the Prime Minister. Okay. Does I want to reply? Fair enough. Who are taking good note. The population is taking good note. B133.
Before you answer this question, the transfer question rests with the executive, not with you, not with me. This is a standing order here. And this is why we fight, we quarrel each other, because you don't look at your standing order. And you're paid out of public money to look at your standing order.
It's with regard to the letter addressed to the Prime Minister. It's not with regard to the Creole Mauritian.
There is no debate, sir. There is no debate. This is question time. If you have a question, you ask a question.
Okay, that's fine.
We move to the next question.
Yeah, B133, thank you.
Oui, tout d'abord, Monsieur le Président, il ne peut pas faire des commentaires que je ne veux pas répondre à sa question. Comme vous avez si bien dit, il ne sait même pas comment adresser la question à quel ministre. You should learn. This is a matter with regard to education.
No debate. Honorable Prime Minister, please reply to the question.
He is allowed to make comments that I am not willing to answer. I take exception from this. Qu'on pose question. I'll prendre prou standing orders, I'll get take. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Some members, excuse me, some members want to rewrite the standing orders. You take your responsibility, I take my responsibility.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Drug Observatory was set up in 2015 under the aegis of the Ministry of Health and Wellness in order to monitor and assess the drug situation in the country and to devise appropriate strategies to address the drug issue. The NDO report provides comprehensive information on prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation services for drug use and harm reduction services, as well as supply reduction and related activities, amongst others. It aims at facilitating information exchange among stakeholders so that prompt actions can be initiated to counteract the harmful effects of drug trafficking by addressing demand and supply issues and identifying trends in drug trafficking at an early stage. The report contains factual information. In line with the recommendation of the National Drug Control Master Plan 2019-2023, the National Drug Secretariat is responsible for the preparation and publication of the NDO report. Accordingly, the last NDO report was prepared and published by the NDS. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that classifying overdose as cause of death can be challenging. Even autopsy results can be relatively non-specific, as in most cases of death due to drugs, the findings are mainly acute pulmonary edema and acute cerebral edema. Toxicological analysis and expert interpretation of the results are necessary for proper classification of death. In fact, cause of death due to drug overdose is a very sensitive and technically complex issue. It requires not only clinical findings of experts during the post-mortem, but also careful interpretation of toxicology results. I am also informed that while collecting data for the NDO report 2019, it was noticed by the NDS that the criteria to establish whether a case of death is due to drug overdose was not clearly spelled out. The term overdose can be misleading as there is no known drug threshold level for illicit drugs. A typical dose, while not being lethal for someone, might be fatal for another person. The Forensic Science Laboratory only identifies the substance found in a dead person, but does not quantify them. There was thus a need to define the criteria as well as the agency responsible to report it. Mr. Speaker, sir, therefore, the NDO report for the year 2019 was finalized without data related to death due to drug abuse. In order to classify the cause of death due to drug abuse, it is important to come up with a set of criteria. Following consultations held, it has been agreed that all stakeholders concerned, namely the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Medico-Legal Department of the Police, the FSL, and the NDS will continue to look into ways to identify death due to drug abuse.
Honorable Mayat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, the Honorable Prime Minister has already answered to my question. Thank you.
Honorable Dulab.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, can the Prime Minister inform the House of the composition of the National Drug Secretariat? Thank you.
The composition. Here it is. The National Drug Secretariat, which is guided by and reports to a high-level drug and HIV Council, which is chaired by me, comprises of the following: Ministry of Health and Wellness, Ministry of Education, Tertiary Education and Science and Technology, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade, Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Sports and Recreation, Ministry of Social Integration, Social Security and National Solidarity, Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare, Ministry of Technology, Communication and Innovation, Ministry of Local Government and Disaster Risk Management, the Office of the Attorney General, representatives of non-governmental organizations, and representatives of the private sector.
Last supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In relation to admission in public health institution for drug consumption, can the Honorable Prime Minister state the trend for the past years for synthetic drugs? Well, synthetic drugs. Well, the relation to public health institution, yes. So synthetic drug remains the main cause, accounting for 62% of total admissions. That is 520 out of 834 admissions in 2019. But however, it is important to note, Mr. Speaker, sir, that there has been a decreasing trend in the number of admissions related to synthetic drugs combined with mixed, unspecified and unspecified substances. There were 783 admissions in the year 2017, 644 in the year 2018, and 592 for the year 2019.
Time over. The table has been advised that PQB 131, B200, B201, B202 have been withdrawn. The honourable members, the table have been advised that PQ B166 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of National Infrastructure and Community Development. PQ B178 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of Finance, Government and Planning. PQ B188 will be replied by the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Honourable Lechman Roy.
B145.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that since the outbreak of COVID-19, the international community has been looking for a way to treat this viral infection. Remdesivir is a broad-spectrum antiviral medication which is usually prescribed for the treatment of patients with Ebola. Remdesivir has been developed by the biopharmaceutical company Gilead Sciences, which was the first company to obtain marketing authorization and to file a case for reimbursement in the management of its severe forms. Unfortunately, the expectations raised by this molecule were soon dashed. On 20th November 2020, the World Health Organization advised against the use of this antiviral medication, as there was no evidence that remdesivir improved the survival of patients or prevented them from being placed under ventilation. A committee of experts from the WHO analyzed the results of 4 clinical trials on more than 7,000 patients hospitalized for COVID-19, which was published in the medical journal BMJ, and they concluded that there was not enough evidence on the effectiveness of remdesivir on COVID-19 patients. Scientists highlight the possibility of having significant side effects from the use of remdesivir, notwithstanding the relatively large cost and logistical implications of an intravenous medication. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that in several countries, for instance, France, the Gilead laboratory has withdrawn its request for reimbursement based on the decision of the health authorities of these countries. As the efficacy of remdesivir is uncertain and it is expensive and potentially dangerous for some patients, remdesivir is therefore not used in Mauritius.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether his ministry has put in place a protocol for treatment of severe cases?
Mr. Speaker, sir, yes, my ministry has put in place for the treatment management of the cases, from the admission of patients to the discharge of patients, including protocol for mild and moderate, even severe cases. The protocol has been set by my ministry.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Minister inform the House who were responsible for devising the protocol?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the protocol has been devised by a panel of experts consisting of the following specialties: interventionist, infectiologist, pulmonologist, gastroenterologist, nephrologist, geriatricians, pediatricians, gynecologists, and the biologist.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister rightly said that the WHO Solidarity Trial did find there was zero-like effect with the use of remdesivir. However, the FDA did approve it since November last year, and recently there have been two trials. The REMARK-TAP trial, which has shown that remdesivir, in combination with the newest monoclonal antibody, which is now proving very, very efficient in ICU critical care, has shown to improve survival. Will the Honourable Minister consider the use of remdesivir together with the latest monoclonal antibodies, as it is now being suggested, even yesterday, by the Prime Minister of India to have it done in his country? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in my reply, I have already mentioned that the protocol is being prepared by the panel of experts, which I have already mentioned. If the experts will consider that this medication will be used in the future, obviously. But for the time being, whatever be the recommendation of the WHO concerning remdesivir, we have taken all that into consideration.
Can the Honourable Minister inform the House that currently what are the medications being used to treat severe cases in Mauritius?
Mr. Speaker, sir, based on the protocol, it depends upon the severity of cases, but as I broadly to outline that the protocol recommends the use of steroids like dexamethasone, convalescent plasma in some specific cases, anticoagulants, antibiotics, as well as antifungal agents that the ministry has already procured to be used for these patients.
Maljuman, question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my colleague just mentioned, since remdesivir is approved by the FDA, and can the Minister inform the House whether the reason why we are not using it in Mauritius is because of the expensive costs?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have replied this, why remdesivir is not being used. I won't repeat it again.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister whether the latest drug that is being used is called tocilizumab. Is he aware of that drug, and is that available in Mauritius? So can he check whether it should be made available?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I've taken this drug, which I don't know, but I'm sure I'm going to refer it to the expert committee. The expert committee has to decide whether this drug will be used or not.
Next question.
B146.
Monsieur le Président, le Environment Protection, Banning of Plastic Bags Regulation 2020 est entré en vigueur le 1er mars 2021 et a été adopté le 26 août 2020 conformément à la vision du programme gouvernemental 2020-2024 visant à faire de Maurice un pays sans plastique dans les délais les plus proches. Ce règlement a en fait abrogé et remplacé le règlement de 2015, le Environment Protection, Banning of Plastic Bags, et prévoit une interdiction de la fabrication, l'importation, la vente, la fourniture des sacs en plastique non biodégradables, tels que les sacs en plastique en rouleau, les petits sacs en plastique de type poche, pocket tag, et aussi les sacs en plastique transportés par des passagers débarquant d'un avion ou d'un navire aux fins de transporter des effets personnels. Il est à souligner aussi, Monsieur le Président, qu'une dérogation est toutefois prévue pour d'autres types de sacs en plastique, notamment les sacs qui sont utilisés pour les disposal of waste, including quarantine and clinical waste, et aussi les sacs utilisés for the purpose of agriculture, medical purposes, for the purpose of sampling or analysis. Monsieur le Président, des opérations de mise en application ont eu lieu dans le cadre du règlement de 2015, donc sur le Environment Protection Banning of Plastic Bags. Donc, du 1er janvier au 28 février, il n'y a pas eu de contravention établie. Après l'entrée en vigueur du règlement de 2020, c'est-à-dire à partir du 1er mars, des inspections ont été effectuées par des agents du département de l'environnement, notamment la police de l'environnement et aussi les différents enforcement officers basés au ministère. Et je suis informé qu'un total de 347 points de vente combinant des stands de nourriture, marchés, foires et marchands ambulants entre autres ont été visités à travers l'île. Et pour la période du 1er au 9 mars 2021, 3 contraventions ont été établies et environ 1,3 kg de sacs en plastique interdits ont été saisis. Monsieur le Président, compte tenu de l'ordonnance pour la restriction temporaire du mouvement qui a été décrétée à partir du 10 mars 2021, il n'y a aucune opération de répression à haut niveau en cours, mais quand même, les enforcement officers sont toujours sur le terrain pour s'assurer de la mise en application et aussi du respect des différents règlements qui sont entrés en vigueur à partir du 1er mars. Et permettez-moi aussi de saisir l'occasion, Monsieur le Président, pour lancer un appel au public afin qu'il dénonce toute infraction au règlement 2020, Environment Protection Banning of Plastic Bags, au ministère de l'Environnement ou même à la police de l'environnement. Et permettez-moi aussi de dire que selon les observations sur le terrain, il y a une adhésion, une conformité croissante du public avec les regulations of banning of plastic bags.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So in his answer, the Honourable Minister mentioned about 3 kilo of plastic bag saisi. Can he inform the House actually what is done with the plastic bags afterwards?
Donc, je dois dire qu'il y a une très bonne collaboration avec le ministère des collectivités locales. Il y a des bennes qui ont été prévues à travers le pays pour la collecte des single-use plastiques et aussi les plastic bags qui sont interdits à partir du 1er mars. Donc, ces sacs en plastique qui sont interdits ou même les single-use plastiques qui ont été collectés sont acheminés vers des recycleurs pour être recyclés.
Yes, I would like to ask the Honourable Minister, the replacement of the plastic bags is biodegradable bags. Can I ask him which department in Mauritius certifies that the bags are actually biodegradable and to which standard, meaning how long a time does it take for it to disintegrate in nature?
Oui, Monsieur le Président, il y a la contribution du National Environment Laboratory, qui est Donc, on fait appel notamment au National Environmental Laboratory. Et je dois dire que les scientifiques qui sont basés là-bas apportent la contribution pour certifier la qualité des sacs en plastique qui sont concernés.
Merci. Je rebondis sur la question de mon collègue. Depuis l'instauration de cette loi interdisant les sacs en plastique, nous voyons de plus en plus apparaître des plastiques dits biodégradables avec la norme EN 13432 inscrite dessus, mais qui n'est en réalité pas du tout des sacs plastiques biodégradables. Est-ce qu'on pourrait savoir quelles sont les actions prises par le ministère pour contrôler ou pour empêcher la prolifération de ces plastiques qui sont dits biodégradables, mais qui en réalité ne le sont pas?
Oui. Je remercie l'honorable pour sa question. Donc, Monsieur le Président, dans les regulations qui sont entrées en vigueur à partir du 1er mars, mention est faite dedans qu'il y a une obligation de mentionner le nom et aussi le contact address du manufacturer, aussi de l'importeur. Hein, que ce soit pour les exempt non-biodegradable plastic bags, aussi pour les biodegradable and compostable plastic bags. Mais nous sommes au courant qu'il y a quelques sacs qui sont mis sur le marché, mais qui ne respectent pas ces provisions. Donc là, je dois dire que les membres de la police de l'environnement, les information officiels sont à pied d'œuvre pour saisir ce type d'article. Ce que je demanderai toujours, c'est que tous ces fabricants, tous ces manufacturers doivent nécessairement s'enregistrer avec le ministère de l'Environnement.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. On parle souvent de single plastic use bag pour des sacs en plastique. Je voudrais savoir de l'honorable ministre, quelle en est la situation des single-use plastiques par rapport à des packaging dans les emballages, dans les supermarchés et dans les boutiques? Comment ça se passe? Merci.
Pour les packaging, ce sont des provisions qui sont prévues par la loi. Cela fait partie des exceptions qui sont prévues par la loi en ce qui concerne les packaging. Mais quand même, ce sont des packaging qui sont mis en chef pour être vendus aux consommateurs. Mais l'appel qui a été toujours lancé, c'est que lorsque nous venons de l'avant avec de telles regulations, il y a plusieurs facteurs à considérer. Bien sûr que les alternatives existent sur le marché et que les alternatives soient à un prix abordable. Et je dois dire que nous travaillons conjointement avec la Chambre de commerce, nous travaillons conjointement avec Business Mauritius pour s'assurer qu'il y ait une bonne coordination entre les opérateurs et aussi le ministère de l'Environnement.
The table has been advised that PQ B208, B209, B210, and B211 have been withdrawn.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is premature for me at this stage to consider the advisability of suspending the board members of the STC.
Monsieur le Président, de par la réponse du ministre concernant le board de la STC qui, pendant le confinement, le dernier confinement de l'année dernière, a fait face à des graves allégations et fautes professionnelles dans l'achat de certains matériaux. Dois-je comprendre, par la réponse du ministre, que si le rapport d'audit et le management letter de la STC, qui sera remis ou qui a déjà été remis par l'audit, donc ce rapport et ce management letter sera remis au même conseil d'administration qui fait face à autant de graves allégations pendant le Covid. Donc c'est le même conseil d'administration, monsieur le ministre, qui va recevoir ce rapport d'audit?
Well, I've said that I don't have the intention to suspend the board at the moment. Well, we'll see.
Monsieur le Président, encore une fois, le ministre est avare d'informations et de décisions. Le board de la STC, Monsieur le Président, a acheté des matériaux pendant le dernier confinement pour 1 milliard de roupies d'après le rapport de l'audit, dans une opacité totale. Mais, Monsieur le ministre, votre gouvernement, quelques mois de cela, dans l'affaire de Saint-Louis, à révoquer le board du CEB et le directeur. Ne pensez-vous pas, Monsieur le ministre, pour la transparence, pour la bonne gouvernance, donnant l'exemple de révoquer ce board de la STC?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I fail to see how this question has a relation to do with the board of CB.
I will suspend the sitting for 1.5 hours.